we're in a system that's unsustainable. It's failing as we speak. And what is the outcome? And the answer is we don't know. And I know your next question, because we talked offline, but the banks have the idea of maintaining control. In fact, their wish is to control the financial system even further than they already do.
Here at Liberty and Finance, we're licensed brokers with Miles Franklin. We are standing by the inventory, ready to make sure you get what you need, even into the wee hours of night and on weekends, because preparedness doesn't stop. Call us 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237.
Hey everyone, this is Elijah K. Johnson with Liberty and Finance. And back with us today is our good friend David Morgan, the Silver Guru, one of the top silver experts from the morganreport.com. David, thank you so much for joining us today.
Elijah, it's always good to be back. Thank you.
It is an exciting day in the markets today for gold and silver. We're seeing silver testing that $26 level and gold, making its way back up to $2,000 an ounce. What do you think is driving the market right now?
Oh, that's always a tough one. More buyers than sellers, obviously. But I think it's the concerns in the financial markets, the system, what's going on with these overreach of the political class in all jurisdictions. A lot of fear and uncertainty. So it drives people into the safe harbor. And there's nothing safer on a decentralized basis than the precious metals.
Now, when it comes to the price action we've seen recently, I know last time we had you on was right after that price spike that we saw because of the Ukraine-Russia war. Your take on where we are right now, are there any key levels that you're looking for to be taken out to show that we might be on our way to the upside from here?
Oh, absolutely. Any round number, especially in the thousands, is a big psychological event. So $2,000 gold in U.S. terms is a big deal. So it's got to trade above 2,000 and stay there. And once that's accomplished, there'll be a bit of a readjustment to the mindset of everyone that's in the market or going to participate in the market, meaning that 2,000 will become the floor and everyone will think that how high above 2,000 is it going to go? Is it going to go 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, whatever? So it does set a precedence for the, let's say, rethinking the market. Silver will probably catch up, not immediately, but at some point. And I think psychologically, the $30 level for silver holds the same kind of key ingredient that once we're at 30, a lot of the Wall Street silver crowd that came in and for the most part have held on and dollar cost average and keep stacking, they'll be rewarded psychologically at $30 silver that, okay, I bought it at 28, 29, some bought it at 30, although it wasn't there very long on the spot price. But many of these people, as you well know, Elijah, are paying 35, 36 in the case of the Silver Eagle, maybe even $40 an ounce because the premiums are so high. But again, coming back to the 30, psychologically you feel better. When the spot price was 25 and you bought it for 30, then the price gets to 30, you actually net zero on a fiat basis. But psychologically, it's moved $5 and you feel better.
I think what you mentioned about premiums is very interesting. We are seeing premiums rise across the board, especially in the sovereign minted coins, and the Eagles are pretty much the highest I've ever seen them at around $14 over spot. And it gives an interesting opportunity for some people who want to swap Eagles for other forms of metal. They can sometimes, get more ounces of silver that way. But overall, we are seeing premiums rise. What is your take on what is happening in the physical silver market at the moment?
Well, obviously, you just said it. They're very tight, supply and a very big demand. The only reason people continue to pay a premium is because they want it. They want it now. And normally, whatever normal means these days, but in years past, when we saw these spikes like happened in 2008, we saw $9 on the paper price and $13 on eBay, and many of the dealers that we both know were selling silver around 12 or 13, even though the paper price was $3 or $4 lower. But that only lasted for a short time. I'm going to say 2 months. I wrote an article about it. And there was an arbitrage situation going on, as you just mentioned. I mean, in fact, the local dealer here said, why don't you put your 100-ounce bars up on your website and sell them for 13 and pocket that $4 delta, buy the thousands, and then, convert the thousands to hundreds when the premium drops. So I said that to make the point that there is robust demand in silver to keep the premiums high and staying high. They have subsided very slightly, and I'll take some guilt. One of the programs, and there's very few that I sponsor. I don't really sponsor this one. I'm an associate of it, but this OwnX that's on my blog, you buy into part of a silver commercial bar, so you're getting it near spot. But when you convert, you could convert to the silver spot price and pay very little above that and get the silver, but that's a 1,000-ounce form. And who does that? Very few. So you take your portion of it, you've got 126 ounces, you can get 110 delivered, and now you pick, do you want silver eagles? Do you want silver rounds? Do you want 10-ounce bars? And you pay that premium. So I was encouraging people to buy through that system and wait for the premiums to come down. The premiums aren't coming down. So I think we're in a new market here, and sooner or later, something's got to give. The arbitrage is for anyone that can fabricate silver to buy up as much as they possibly can and put it on the shelf at $25 and punch out, rounds at $30 as fast as they can all day, every day, till the market adjusts.
It does seem like we're entering kind of a new phase. I know Andy Schectman has been talking about for quite a while this great awakening where people are really becoming aware of precious metals. And we are seeing countries around the world accumulating gold, and Russia actually, for a little while, they kind of pegged their ruble to gold or gold to their ruble. Now, you've really recently mentioned how this Ukraine-Russia war could lead to a resetting of the financial system, possibly based on gold. Can you expand on this?
Sure. First, for clarity purposes, the tie to the, I think it was a gram for 5,000 rubles of gold, that's already been nixed. It was only when it was stated publicly, it was through, I think it was 2 June, which means the remainder of April and all of May, the way I read it. It's already come off. I put it up on my Twitter feed. If you care to look at it, you can Google it and find it. But going beyond that, your question, the idea is that gold is in the parlance of the financial system again because of this. Whether it gets reenacted at any time in the future remains to be determined. But just the idea that, I'll sell you gas and oil in rubles. Oh, yeah, they're paying in euros, but it's getting converted in the foreign exchange market to rubles, and the final payment is rubles, which puts demand in the foreign exchange markets for rubles. And it's been going higher and higher. And I think that I forget who it was, I'm going to say the Ministry of Finance, something along those lines, that said that, this exchange rate, and it's internal to Russia. In other words, all the gold mines in Russia, they put that idea, or that mandate, I'll call it, to 5,000 per gram. But that's already gone away. But again, the more important point is thinking about gold in the financial system. There's so much corruption throughout the globalist elite banking cartel that needs to be, in my opinion, strong one, rectified. We're in a system that is unsustainable. It's failing as we speak. And what is the outcome? And the answer is we don't know. And I know your next question, because we talked offline, but the banks have the idea of maintaining control. In fact, their wish is to control the financial system even further than they already do.
Right. And numerous countries have been discussing central bank digital currencies. I believe you were just on Stanbury Research and mentioned how it's actually been 91 countries are considering it. 9 have implemented them in some way. So what does this really mean for the financial system going forward?
Complete control. That's what it means if it's implemented on a worldwide basis or in a jurisdiction. I mean, it's in China now, and it's horrible. I mean, it's based on a social credit score more than what your credit worthiness is. I mean, the old financial system of yesteryear was based on your ability to repay a loan, and you got a credit score, and had nothing to do with your political ideology or how many times you saluted, so and so. It only had to do with what kind of a repayment structure you did. Were you a person of integrity that paid back their bills on time? Were you slow paid? Did you miss payments and that kind of thing? And you got a credit score. That's gone out the window. Now it all has to do with how much in line you are with the power structure. If you're in line with the power structure, you have the ability to lower price loans, fly anywhere you want, top hotels, that type of thing. I was thinking primarily in China, but it's here and it's coming here. And it's going to get here faster than most people expect. So it really disgusts me, but being oriented to my worldview, it's already been printed out, not in those exact terms, but we know that the system that we are watching unfold before our eyes has very explicit demands on the human population, and you're either going to conform or you're not. And I think we're getting to that point rather rapidly.
You mentioned how, you're either going to have to conform or you're not. And you have mentioned some kind of scary possibilities out there. If we do see a cyber attack, some things that could happen, possibly like a digital ID. Now, a lot of people might say, well, that's just conspiracy theory. But I remember going to a talk. It was actually Michael Knowles from the Daily Wire. And he was saying that the difference between conspiracy theory and mainstream news is about 6 months. And that's what we've been seeing. Your take on what might be ahead if we do see a cyber attack and the greater control and the loss of privacy that we might have.
Yeah, well, it adds on to what you just said, Elijah, just to revivify what we talked about. So if we're looking at a system that'll be central bank digital currencies where they have complete control, then it's, well, how do you get everybody into that system? Do they voluntarily do it? Well, if you have a false flag or an actual event, could be nature. Let's say you have a big CME and it wipes out, the cyberspace for a while. Might not wipe out the world's internet connection, but let's say it wipes out a good portion of, let's say, the East Coast of the United States as an example. And it's only down for, a couple of days or something. And that would be the perfect crisis. Let's never let a crisis go to waste, where I would say, well, you know what? We've got a real problem here. We've got to, beef up our ability to weather these type of solar storms. But what we really found out is we're having trouble with identification. So now what we need to do is make certain that you are who you say you are. And what we need to do is have a very, very explicit way of mating you to your financial ability to transact anywhere, internet or out in the real world. So that's the digital ID. That's the idea that it's your fingerprint, your retina scan, your blood sample, your hair sample, your fingernail, whatever. It probably will be put into a DNA database where your identity is your DNA. And once that's accomplished, they have absolute complete control, because you could be part of a corporation or a limited liability company or whatever, but your anonymity is gone. You're basically tracked, traced, and taxed no matter what you do. And I think that's the ultimate goal. So in my conspiracy hat, I think that anything along those lines, Elijah, where you would see some disruption in cyber attack, solar storm, grid down, those type of scenarios, you'll see a trial balloon, I'm almost certain, where this push for a more complete digital identity will be enacted.
How does gold then play into this new system? If we do see central bank digital currency and possible digital ID, do you see this all being connected to gold in some way?
Not initially. I think it could be. But so let's say that it is. Let's say that they try their just, modern money theory, and you can just print to infinity. And as long as you've got a digital ID, you're in the system. It doesn't matter how much we print. You get your universal basic income, and you own nothing, but you're happy. All right. Well, let's say that doesn't work. There's too much of a pushback. So then the elites say, okay, well, we're going to tie it to gold. You can't have the gold, but it's tied to gold. So we're going to limit the supply. It's not modern money theory anymore. We're limited by our gold pool, and it's this. All right, fine. But though at that time, all the time before, during, or after that possibility, there'll be a real gold market. And it's called the black market, but it's really the free market. And that's where people in and of themselves will make transactions in precious metals. So they'll sell their car for gold or silver. They'll rent their home for it. They'll trade for food. They'll do whatever. That's the real market. Of course, it will be possibly in the future, it will be not only looked down upon, but maybe will be illegal. I put those illegal in quotation marks because it's really illegal not to settle in metal. And if you're in the United States and you're settling a debt to the state, I mean, they're not supposed to accept anything but gold or silver. So, I've often thought I should call up my tax assessor and ask him a question, tell him I've been frauding him for all these years. And I'm really, really upset because I've been paying him in these tokenized digital receipts called Federal Reserve notes, and I haven't settled in honest money. And am I going to go to jail? But not too many people think backwards like that. It is a humorous take on how the law has been perverted to such a degree that most people, even the Federal Reserve Chairman, cannot tell you what money is.
Right. I mean, the original definition of the dollar was so many grains of silver. So that's definitely true there. Now, when it comes to how we can, you said really when it comes to this central bank digital currency and possibly this digital ID, we'll have the option of opting into the system or just completely leaving the system. So how do we protect our own privacy? How do we protect our liberty in this case if we do see movements towards these kind of scary scenarios that you're talking about?
Well, get active. I mean, just having the knowledge and not acting on it is not that useful. So, even though the Congress critters and a lot of the political class are bought and paid for, not all of them are. And they actually fear us, even though they don't act like it. If you had enough people that rallied and said, hell no, we're not doing this, it does upset the apple cart. And so I think one is to just as simple as an email, although a phone call is far superior, and you usually get an answering machine to say, hey, bill number 12345 that says I have to submit to your digital ID is outside of, my belief system. We don't need this. You've had my bank account based on the information I gave you. I've got a government ID. That's all that's required. I don't want it. And they get the phones backed up like that, or they see people talking about it and they're willing to stand up in the street or that type of thing. Doesn't guarantee that it'll stop it, but it could slow it down and it could end it. So we do have power if we unite. And we don't have to be all of us, but enough of us to put the idea that we're not going to stand for this nonsense. That's number one. Number two is just to reconcile what you want personally for you and your community, your family, or whatever. I think there will be a breaking away, so to speak, of people that just, instead of the great reset, it's the great reject. And they just go into more or less a 1880s kind of a lifestyle. And of course, it's not even that, because with solar or propane or some alternative energies, running a paddle wheel off of a stream, all these things where you could still be in the modern world, so to speak, with electricity, but off the grid more or less, and make your own way. It's hard to say. We've got so much on our plate, Elijah, with the food problems we're seeing, the political class being more demanding than ever, with the financial system on kind of its last legs, and these proposals that are draconian. So it's something that's very interesting to be alive and partake in whether you want to or not. But I think there is more to it than we see at present, which means that we are going to have to be the one to make our decision whether or not we go that next step. I don't think the system is something that's just going to happen without your knowledge. I think you're going to get to a point where you have to give that hair sample, that retina scan, that fingerprint or whatever into the new system. And I think system is the key word. So watch for it. Am I wrong or right? Remains to be determined. Certainly the trend is clear. Almost anyone that watches Liberty and Finance is aware of what I just said.
And I think in these kinds of situations where there is a crisis and the government doesn't want to, let the crisis go to waste, they're able to take away people's liberties because people are desperate in that situation. But one way to make sure that we won't be desperate in that situation is to have real money, right? Become our own central bank and have physical precious metals. So your perspective on that, is that another way that we can really opt out of the system and have some protection so that we won't ask the government to, have us turn over to this new financial system to save us?
Well, certainly part of it, but I would put it on a tier basis below having extra food or a way of making income that's outside of, let's say, the corporate structure. So let's say that you're, let's say something real simple like house cleaning. I mean, there are people still with money that'll pay you to clean their house or their car or, work in their garden or whatever. So that's one thought. The other one is having extra food, because food's going to become more and more valuable as we press through this breakdown of the system. But not above that, but just below that is if you have any additional savings. Certainly precious metals has proven to be over thousands of years payment of last resort that's accepted almost everywhere. So I would certainly think that you should have it. But if you're very limited in your budget, you don't have any savings, basically, you're living paycheck to paycheck, I would say anything that's extra in your budget on a weekly or monthly basis, I'd put toward food before I would buy precious.
All right. Well, David, we really appreciate your time today. Before we let you go, where can our viewers find you? And did you have any last thoughts to add?
Yeah, the best place to find me is at the main landing page of themorganreport.com. Get on our free e-letter and go to the blog. There's just about everything I do in the public domain. We post up on the blog. And the final thought is it's not over till it's over, meaning that governments are getting a lot more pushback really than perhaps they expected. I mean, it's interesting how this whole illness thing isn't gone, but it's certainly not the main meme anymore once this Ukraine thing started. So it makes a lot of people that were, let's say, more or less aligned with what the mainstream media had to say are starting to question it more and more. That's, I think, the biggest fear of the elite. It isn't a lot of things other than the fear that there's too many people that are enlightened, that understand that they're full of it, and that a lot of the mainstream news is fake, phony, false, and that we have the ability of our innate God-given rights to stand up and tell them, you work for us and you're doing something wrong. Not only do you do something wrong, you're breaking the law. And here's why. So there's a lot more of that coming to the fore, I think. And with the electronic platforms we have, even though email doesn't mean much, if someone puts legislation in that says we're going to enact this and it's contradictory to the law that's already established, instead of getting 100 emails normally, getting 10,000 or 100,000, that sends a message. But as I said earlier, a phone call is actually the best way to get their attention.
All right. Once again, David, thank you so much for your time, and God bless.
Bless you. Thanks.
Miles Franklin Precious Metals is one of America's oldest and most trusted bullion dealers. Miles Franklin is A+ rated and accredited by the Better Business Bureau, licensed and bonded, and has 0 complaints ever registered. Here at Liberty and Finance, we are licensed brokers with Miles Franklin. To order, simply call us, discuss your needs, and we will let you know our live inventory, prices, and availability. and lock in your order over the phone. Once your order is locked, the price is held for you regardless of market fluctuations, and the metals are reserved for you awaiting your settled payment. Within 1 business day of ordering, you will receive an email invoice detailing the order and payment instructions. Miles Franklin accepts payments by bank wire, ACH or electronic check, money order, check mailed priority mail, and cryptocurrency. The fastest forms of payment are bank wire and cryptocurrency. Upon settled payment, metals will ship out within 3 to 5 business days. You will receive tracking information via email. Domestic shipping charges are $15 for any order under 500 ounces of silver or 10 ounces of gold. For orders larger than that, domestic shipping is free. The package will be double boxed, fully insured, and labeled discreetly, with no indication of the contents inside. For your privacy, the name Miles Franklin will not even be on the package. To talk to myself, Elijah, my brother Kaiser, or my father Dunnigan, call 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237.